he was still one of the not one of the greatest, but a top 10 quarterback in the NFL at one point.
And Gabe, I definitely disagree with you here, but the only reason why is because, like, if you were gonna get Cam Newton, you would have gotten him a while ago. And I believe they're confident in Jared Stidham. I mean, he looked pretty good in the offseason, the preseason. So I think they're confident in Jared Stidham, and they're not gonna get Andy Dalton or Cam Newton. I mean, I really think Jared Stidham is their guy, and they did bring in Brady, not knowing much about him. And then yeah, so I'm not saying that Stidham can be Brady, but they're confident in him. And Belichick, when you're going into coaching staff like Belichick, he can definitely lead a team to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Belichick obviously knows what he's doing because he's made the playoffs so many years. And there's a reason that they made so many questionable moves. I mean, they drafted a Division II guy with their first pick in the draft, in the
Kyle
second round.
Duggar. Yeah, from
I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how he'll pan out. He looks like a good prospect, but the point that he's in Division II just scares me. And they also picked a kicker and they didn't even pick a quarterback.
To their defense, they definitely needed a kicker. They lost Gostkowski. And Gostkowski wasn't even that great last year, and they need a kicker, and kicking's important, and I know about that way too well being a Bears fan.
Alex, I want to hear your point on this. I mean, I think Jared Stidham is the guy, but I just want to hear your point on this.
Well, I honestly think that Cam Newton will be signed by the Patriots. It's a bold statement, but I have a feeling. I have a good feeling. I have a good hunch about that. And, I mean, for the time being, Patriots need a franchise quarterback who has playoff experience. And I know Andy Dalton has playoff experience, but I believe Cam Newton is better, and I feel like he would fit great on the Patriots.
I think Cam Newton is definitely probably the best quarterback that they can choose. But my question is if he'll fit inside of their offense, because Cam Newton he likes to get physical. He's had a lot of injuries, but he likes to run. I think Bill Belichick may be looking at his options right now because I think he's obviously scared about Cam Newton and how much he's been getting injured, and Andy Dalton did not have a good year last year.
Right, but that was, he had a terrible line, he had terrible defense, give him a good team, and I actually think he could be a pretty dangerous quarterback. And I actually, he's not the most mobile guy. Brady wasn't the most mobile guy. I think Belichick could work with him, and I think Belichick might want a veteran like that. He's had a lot of experience. Obviously, Newton, he's been in the Super Bowl and he's had some experience, but Dalton's been in the playoffs time and time again. No, has he had success? No, but he's been there, and that's very important. So the next thing I want to talk about is one of the more flashy picks in this draft, and that's CeeDee Lamb, who was drafted by the Cowboys. And, a lot of people this guy's, a huge threat downfield in the receiving game, but he could have such a big impact on this offense working with Dak and Zeke. You could have that guy running across I was watching highlights. You could have that guy running across the field on like a jet motion type thing. You have a couple choices. You could drop back and pass. You still got Amari Cooper. You got other great receivers. You also have Ezekiel Elliott, who you can hand it off to, and Lamb is faking out the other way. And you can always give it to Lamb, who is really, really fast. So I want to hear what you guys think, but I think this guy, he can be really effective on this offense. I really do. I think they have so many weapons.
I absolutely agree with you there. I feel like CeeDee Lamb and Cooper will be a great duo, and I agree with you, Drew, that CeeDee Lamb will be great on the Cowboys. He's a great player. I think I do think he wasn't the best receiver going into the draft. I do think Jerry Jeudy was better, but I do think he will be a great duo receiver with Amari Cooper.
I agree with Alex in some way. I think the Cowboys, they had a late first rounder or a mid first rounder, and they definitely weren't expecting for CeeDee Lamb to be on the board at this point. I think with a player that good, you cannot pass on a player that's that good. So I think they were maybe looking for something else, but when they see that CeeDee Lamb was on the board, they have to draft him. And I don't think they really needed him for the team. Like, they already have Michael Gallup, they already have Amari Cooper, who they just signed to a gigantic deal this offseason. And they also have Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. So sure, I think he will be great in the offense, but I don't think that he's needed in the offense.
Right, but depth is important, especially in this game. Injuries. Even like the Bears. They've got a top 10 defense. Which I know is controversial between us, but they've got a top 10 defense, and even then, they really approach the defensive side for depth too. Whether they get like D end at a Tulsa, or, more cornerbacks in the late round. Depth on defense is important, and that actually the defensive side of the ball brings us to our next topic, because I want to talk about the Panthers going on a full-on defensive approach on this draft. They drafted all defensive players. They didn't draft one offensive or special teams player in the whole draft. And Gabe, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I think it was very smart of them, because definitely their defense was one of the worst parts of their team last year. But they signed Teddy Bridgewater this offseason. They extended Christian McCaffrey, which is a great deal, even though he's the highest paid running back now. He's the best running back. So, but I still think that there's questions about this offense, and maybe they could have gone for players on the offense.
I disagree with you, Gabe. I think this was a very smart move. And like last year, Luke Kuechly retired, and their offense was already amazing. They have McCaffrey out of the backfield. Then they have DJ Moore, who's like a rising star in this league. Then they have Teddy Bridgewater, who they're bringing in. And then they have a defense who's really crappy. They need to draft players who are on defense. And I think this is just a really smart move for Matt Rule and the Panthers. So I like this pick. I like this move.
I personally agree with both of you. Chase, I agree with you because yes, they mainly, it was a great call to focus only on defense, but I do think maybe they could have done maybe a late round pick or so, like a late 7th round pick or like a 6th round pick, maybe on an offensive player, just add some depth. But I do see what you're both saying.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about one more thing about the NFL draft, and this is one of the more controversial discussions that we're going to have about this draft, and it's about the Packers and what they did with their 1st round pick. They went out, they drafted Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State, and Brett Favre, opened up about it this week. He said Aaron Rodgers will not end his career as a Packer. What does this mean? And should Packers fans be concerned about the longtime quarterback? Then Favre answers. This got the wheels turning in Aaron's mind. You guys, how concerned would you be if you were a Packer fan right now? And, what do you think is going through Aaron Rodgers' mind right now?
I'd be pretty scared if I was a Packers fan because Jordan Love wasn't a necessary pick. They have Aaron Rodgers, an incredible quarterback and a Hall of Famer. And, I mean, they could have went for a quarterback in a couple of years when he retires. And because of this, I do think Aaron Rodgers will retire in maybe a year or so. So,
I mean, I think Brett Favre is the most trustworthy person to think about this. I think it's the exact same situation Favre was put in. Yeah, he's been through it also. I mean, the Packers are reliving this moment. And I mean, like when Aaron Rodgers came in, Favre was about the same age. And now Jordan Love is coming in. So I really think Favre is easily the best person to talk about this. And yeah, don't worry about Jordan Love, Packers fans, because I think he'll be a good player in the NFL.
What Brett Favre said is definitely, I'm sure some Packers fans will be concerned about it because I'm sure they want to stay with Aaron Rodgers for a long time. But I'm sure there were a lot of Packers fans 15 years ago when Aaron Rodgers got picked. That a lot of them were saying, "Oh no, such a bad pick." But now look at it. Aaron Rodgers is the top 5 quarterback in the league, and I think Jordan Love could be exactly that for them.
But I think what's interesting is they were a game away from the Super Bowl last year. They were in the NFC Championship. Obviously, that didn't go well for them. But I would try to be really supporting my team because I really think you're trying to go all in now. I don't think drafting a long-term quarterback is smart. I mean, there are definitely positions that they could have used help. They could have helped Aaron out a lot. And I personally, I don't like it because you know what? I think that, you know, if you made the conference championship, you're trying to go all in now. Obviously, I like when teams are looking ahead to the future and drafting quarterbacks like later, but I think drafting a quarterback in the first round, even second round, just says a lot about your confidence in the team now. And I think that hurts the Eagles and it's really hurting the Packers. So anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we got our thoughts on episodes 3 and 4 of The Last Dance, everything from the Bad Boys in Detroit, from Rodman's vacation, and we're going to discuss the NFL free agency. So we will be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Breaking news from Adrian Wojnarowski. The NBA postponed the May draft lottery and combine today, sources tell ESPN. That's breaking news from Woj's Twitter. And now let's get to our thoughts on The Last Dance. So last Sunday, episodes 3 and 4 came out. I would like to talk about, the first thing I'd like to talk about these episodes were the Bad Boys in the Detroit Pistons. And, you know, they talk about when, you know, Chicago, you know, they had a lot of trouble beating the Pistons at first. And it took them multiple years to be able to, you know, beat Detroit. What were your reactions to that process of, you know, them trying to beat Detroit for all those years?
I mean, it's kind of crazy thinking of a team that's such not well known because Detroit it's not a big name city. I mean, sure, like in cars and stuff, but for sports, it is not very good at sports. Just look at the Pistons now and look at the Detroit Tigers right now and the Red Wings. They're the worst team in the NHL. Detroit is not a sports city, and thinking of how good these Pistons teams were during this time is just crazy to think, and how long it took the greatest player ever to beat them is just crazy.
I think the Pistons, they didn't have that like superstar player. That's why, and they also had that reputation of the bad boys. So I mean, if they're gonna be out there not playing the game for what it's supposed to be, I don't think they should be rewarded very highly with like a good reputation.
What's interesting is you know, Doug Collins, who was the coach before, you know, he kind of had this strategy of just, you know, let Mike go, and just let let him do whatever he wants, you know, let him score, and you know, let him kind of run the show. And then, you know, Tex Withers and Phil Jackson, you know, they established the triangle offense, and you know, this is really interesting because you know it took you know them a while for it to click, but once it really clicked, it got a lot of other players on the team going. And, you know, this was really interesting. You know, even you saw the game in the NBA Finals against the Lakers with John Paxson when he made all those shots. You know, just interesting stuff like that. You know, the triangle offense, you know, really changed that dynasty.
Yeah, and it really changed Michael Jordan, showing that it doesn't always have to be him that's doing all the work, and he can pass it to his teammates, and he has to trust them.
Yeah, and that's what makes Jordan a true leader there. And yeah, so he can give the ball to Scottie Pippen and got him in the All-Star game. And also they have Horace Grant. And one man can't do it all on a team. And it's a team effort to win. And that's how they won so many championships in the 90s.
And one more thing about the Last Dance is, you know, they really talked about Dennis Rodman a lot in these episodes 3 and 4. And I just thought it was so interesting, you know. They let him go on the vacation to Las Vegas, and, you know, they gave him 48 hours. You know, obviously he wasn't back in time. You know, they got him back, and, you know, they really got him, you know, to work, and he really bought in, and Mike really got him to buy in. You know, Mike would not tolerate with, like, the silly stuff of, like, getting ejected in games and stuff. He's like, you know, we need you. You know, this is without Scotty at one point. Like, we need you. Like, you got to step up and be more of a leader right now. And, you know, it really just showed, like, you know, how Mike, like, influenced his teammates.
Yeah, and it's really crazy how they let Dennis Rodman do that, because think if that happened today, the media would be all over it, and the team would be getting screamed
They
at.
were all over it, though. They were all over it.
Well,
They
yeah,
were
but
all over it, but
not as much as today would have been. Like I'm
Yes.
sure I'm